London, 1666. A single bakery spark ignites, but within hours, fierce winds turn carelessness into an unstoppable citywide inferno. Official accounts say hardly anyone died, yet over 80% of the city vanished, tens of thousands left homeless, and the true cost remains buried. Why does England's deadliest fire barely survive in memory, and what secrets were deliberately left out? To answer that, we have to begin on a dark September morning in Pudding Lane. Before sunrise on September 2nd, 1666, the city's fate turned inside a cramped bakery on Pudding Lane. Thomas Farriner, baker to King Charles II, finished his work late that Saturday night. Like many bakers in London, Farriner left his ovens smoldering, a risky routine meant to save time for the next day's bread. The bakery's walls, thick with soot and flour dust, trapped heat through the night. At around 1 a.m, embers slipped from the oven, catching fire to the wooden structure. Flames crept up the timbers and quickly found the thatched roof above. In moments, the bakery became a furnace. Farriner and his family woke to choking smoke. They scrambled out a window and onto the roof, escaping along the neighboring houses. All but one. The family's maid, whose name never appeared in the records, hesitated or was trapped by the sudden blaze. She became the first known victim of the fire, her body lost in the ruins. In later pamphlets and ballads, blame circled around Farriner, accusing him of negligence. He insisted the oven had been properly secured before midnight, but suspicion lingered for years. The bakery's royal connection did little to shield him from public anger or from the rumors that spread as fast as the flames themselves. Outside, the alley behind Pudding Lane filled with shouts and confusion. Neighbors tried to form a bucket line, but the fire had already leapt to the next house. Within minutes, the narrow lanes and timber homes of London's heart became a corridor for disaster, all set in motion by a single overlooked ember. The flames spread rapidly, turning the city into a disaster. By dawn, the fire was no longer a single blaze. The wind, steady and unrelenting from the east, hurled sparks and burning shingles across rooftops. Flames leapt from house to house, feeding on oak beams and tarred timbers. The city's medieval streets, barely wide enough for a cart, became funnels for heat and smoke. Every window and alleyway offered fuel. In the confusion, parish constables begged to pull down buildings and create fire breaks, but no one dared act without the Lord Mayor's word. Sir Thomas Bloodworth, roused from his bed around 4 a.m, arrived at the scene. Faced with the roaring fire, he dismissed the urgency, muttering that a woman could piss it out. His refusal to order demolitions left the city vulnerable. The chain of command froze as the flames gathered strength. Samuel Pepys, who lived nearby, later wrote in his diary that the wind carried sparks into the air so as the whole city seemed to be on fire at once. By mid-morning, the wind shifted westward, pushing the inferno into the heart of London. Firefighters, poorly equipped and outnumbered, watched helplessly as entire parishes vanished behind walls of flame. Within hours, the fire had escaped Pudding Lane and was racing toward the Thames, devouring everything in its path. The city's fate now depended not on water buckets or prayers, but on the direction of the wind and the paralysis of its leaders. By the morning of September 3rd, London was no longer a city of streets and parishes, but a wasteland of collapsing timbers and scorched stone. The fire moved with a hunger that seemed to defy reason, devouring entire neighborhoods without pause. Within the city walls, more than 13,200 houses were reduced to ash. 87 parish churches vanished, their bells melted and their spires crumbling into the blaze. St. Paul's Cathedral, a landmark for centuries, became a furnace so hot that its lead roof ran in molten streams down Ludgate Hill. The fire spared almost nothing in its path. Markets, livery halls, even the Royal Exchange fell. The destruction measured not only in lost buildings, but in lives uprooted. Between 70 and 80,000 people, almost a fifth of London's population, were suddenly homeless. Families who had lived for generations in the same parish found themselves sleeping in fields beyond the city, clutching whatever they could carry. The fields at Moorfields and Islington filled with makeshift camps. People wandered with carts piled high, searching for lost relatives or a place to rest. The city's civic heart was gone, its records and institutions erased in a matter of days. For many, there was no home to return to. The fire's aftermath left a city unrecognizable, its skyline stripped bare and its people scattered. In the silence after the flames, London became a city of refugees, defined by what it had lost. Official records from the weeks after the fire list only 6 to 8 deaths, a figure that stands in stark contrast to the devastation left behind. The bills of mortality, the city's weekly death registers, resumed 3 weeks after the flames died down. They named 4 people burnt at several places in the first bill, and 2 more the week after. These numbers became the accepted toll, printed in summaries and repeated in history books. But the silence in those records is louder than any tally. Entire neighborhoods disappeared in the firestorm, yet the names of most victims never appeared in any ledger. Parish clerks could only count those whose bodies were found and identified, often in surviving parishes. The poor, the homeless, and countless laborers left no records behind. Bodies consumed by the heat, sometimes hot enough to melt pottery and lead, left nothing for the clerks to count. In the city's prisons, including Newgate and Bridewell, inmates were trapped as the flames swept through. No lists survived to say how many escaped or perished. Their deaths, if they happened, are missing from every official account. Modern historians have combed through burial spikes, probate records, and relief rolls. Some, like Neil Hansen, argue that hundreds or even thousands died, their remains erased by fire or buried beneath the city's new foundations. Others, more cautious, point to the absence of mass graves or charity petitions. The truth likely lies between the lines, a hidden toll among the ruins, lost to a system that counted property before people. The official story is one of miraculous survival, but the real census of the fire remains silent. With the old city reduced to ashes, Parliament moved quickly. In November 1666, the Rebuilding Act laid out a new vision for London's future. Timber frames and thatched roofs were banned, replaced by mandatory brick and stone, materials meant to resist fire. Streets, once so narrow that flames could leap from house to house, were ordered widened. Party walls between buildings became law, each at least a foot thick, to slow the spread of any future blaze. King Charles II appointed surveyors, including Christopher Wren, to oversee the transformation. Wren's plans reshaped the skyline, most famously with the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral rising from the ruins. By 1671, new regulations required every house to have firefighting tools at the ready and encouraged the rise of private fire insurance companies. The city's disaster became the blueprint for modern urban safety, with London's new laws echoing far beyond its walls. The story of London's fire soon traveled far beyond England. In the decades that followed, colonial cities like Boston and New York wrote London's new fire codes directly into their own laws. Boston's 1681 ordinance required brick party walls and banned wooden chimneys, echoing the rules set in the aftermath of 1666. New York followed with its own brick mandates in 1677. Even Chicago, rebuilding after its own Great Fire in 1871, borrowed from these early models. Yet in London, memory shifted. The monument's inscription once blamed the tragedy on religious enemies, but by the 1830s, that accusation was quietly erased. Later generations remembered the fire as a story of progress and renewal, while the true scale of loss faded behind tales of heroic rebuilding. Industrial disasters and global tragedies soon eclipsed London's fire in the public mind, leaving the deadliest urban blaze in English history to slip quietly out of memory. London's fire safety laws were born from ash, but accountability for the invisible dead remains unfinished business. As cities grow denser, the lessons of forgotten catastrophes shape every regulation we trust. Memory fades, but risk never does. How much are we willing to forget? Share your thoughts below.